Different doctrines make these missiles have a different gameplay style needed to be effective. Hello guys, once again it's Matt. Thank you all the members and patrons, and today we're going to talk a little bit about FOX-3 missiles again and basically try to differentiate in categories what the missiles are the best in and what they are the best tactic to be used on them, okay? I already talked a little bit about this on a video talking about what is the best FOX-3 missile that we have in top tier right now, but I really wanted to dive in the three categories of doctrine missiles that we have right now in the game. Does it mean that the missiles don't have, like they are just that or just this? No. Just they are very good at everything, okay guys? It's just that some missiles that are going to be a little bit better at different scenarios that I wanted to differentiate and use that theory to actually have a gameplay effect on the tactic that you use. So let's get going. So we have many missiles in the game, and I can divide them in three categories. We have the missiles that are going to be probably the worst in a dogfight on a short range scenario due to turn and energy, but the best ones in the BVR because they are, you know, the less draggy missiles, or they have the best engine for some reason to go with that, maintaining an energy that they may use on the BVR scenario. There are other missiles that are the opposite. There are missiles that are amazing up to like 12-14 kilometers, have the most amount of energy, most amount of turn, they turn like nothing else, more than the IR missiles even, but then for the longer ranges they just completely fall off, even not being able to hit anything above like 34 kilometers even realistically, right? So and then we have the middle ground, missiles that are the jack of all trades, missiles that are very good at dogfights, short range, and very good at BVR, and these are probably the best missiles in the game right now for a new player getting into top tier, and the most reliable ones for you to have fun, to be honest. But let's start to categorize them. So for the BVR-ish kind of missiles, again, all these missiles are amazing at everything, okay? They're not bad at something. It's just that there are better missiles for a certain tactic and better missiles for other tactics, okay? So the first one I would include three missiles, or basically five, but three missiles, right? The AIM-120A and B, the RB-99, which is an AIM-120, of course, and then the PL-12 and the AM-4. These missiles are going to be the worst normally in a dogfight in short range environments. Depending on altitude, they are going to be severely worse, you know, than some of the other missiles, making, for example, the AM-4 have almost 1,000 kilometers per hour less than the Mika, for example, at 6 or 8 kilometers, meaning that it has a lot less energy and it turns a lot less. All of these missiles, they turn not even 30 Gs, right? So they turn a lot less than the 50 Gs and 40 Gs of other missiles, okay? So it means that for dogfights, for short range engagements, they're not going to be the best out there, but they're not bad. They are okay. But then after 22, 24 kilometers, they start to become the best thing ever. Up to like 26 kilometers onwards, the AIM-120 is going to be the missile that has the most amount of energy. Compared to something like the Mika, now the AIM-120 will be the one that has more than 1,000 kilometers per hour advantage in energy compared to the Mika, for example. So a lot more energy to get targets that are flying 32, 34, 36, 38, 40 kilometers instead of the advantage at short range. And of course, the above 36 kilometers, the PL-12 and the AM-4 become the second and third, you know, the third and second respectively, actually, missiles that have the most amount of energy, right? So yeah, the AIM-120, the AM-4, the PL-12, they're not going to be good dogfighting missiles compared to a Mika, to an R-77, to a Derby, but they are going to be better than all of those in the BVR arena because they will have more speed, meaning more energy, meaning more chances to hit. Remember, I have to take into account many variables to actually say this, not only energy, drag, you know, amount of fin AOA, amount of Gs that the missile can pull, amount of altitude, depends on the altitude. The lower you go, these differences are going to be less and less. For example, the AM4 at 250 meters will be almost identical to the AM120, while, for example, the R77 and the Mika will be almost identical to each other in certain scenarios as well, right? So it completely changes the game as well. So just remember that the differences flying high will be much higher, much bigger than in the lower altitudes. But the difference should be a standardization of those differences that I was talking about. So for the AM120, AM4 and PL12, they will have more energy. For BVR, even in the low altitudes, high altitudes, it doesn't matter. It's just that the difference is less problematic in the lower altitudes, okay? So these missiles are the BVR ones. What about Dogfight, short range? Here we can have two missiles that I think are the best ones. Of course, I have to say about the Mika. The Mika is still going to be the best missile at up to like 14, 16 kilometers, okay? These missiles can be very, very deadly at high altitude. At low altitude, it's only better than the other ones at up to like 6 to 8 kilometers. But still, at high altitudes, that distance can be doubled in the sense of being the best missile. It turns 50 Gs, it has an enormous amount of acceleration, and it will be the fastest missile at those speeds. The problem is that it's a very draggy missile. It turns very well, but it is a very, 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 very draggy missile. Meaning that above 22 kilometers, it becomes literally the worst missile to actually use in a BVR. Meaning that close to like 38 kilometers, 40 kilometers, it's becoming subsonic, which means that the missile is basically dead, right? It means that the missile will not be able to do basically anything else. So remember, at up to like 20, 22 kilometers, the Mika is still amazing. I mean, at up to 16, it will be the best. At up to 20 to 22, still has the same amount of energy as others. Apart from that, above 22 kilometers, it will be the worst missile, being worse and worse each kilometer that it passes, right? So at like 20 kilometers, 22 kilometers should be around the max range that you fire these missiles. 30 would be the max that I would fire something like this. At low altitudes, of course, 8, 9, 10 kilometers is already pretty bad. At like 14 is already, the missile is already dead. But most missiles are already dead at those altitudes. But just remember, the Mika will be amazing. 50 Gs, most amount of energy at these distances, lower distances, but above, depending on altitude, certain kilometers, being an actual BVR shot, it will be the worst missile. So just expect that. And then we have kind of a middle ground, okay? A middle ground where there are better, there are worse here and there, but in general, I can include two missiles here. The missiles that are basically the jack of all trades, that are good or bad depending on situation. R77 and the Darter, and of course the Derby, right? Darter and Derby kind of together. But these three missiles are going to be the middle ground. Some of them are better. The Darter and Derby are indeed better against the R77, apart from the 50G turn of the R77, but they are right there, you know. On the BVR situation, they're going to be worse, okay? They're going to be worse, especially the R77 will be worse than many of the other missiles, but it's not by much. It's like 500 kilometers per hour, not even that the energy that the missile has depending on the range, right? And the Derby will have a lot more and be a lot more on par with the other missiles, but losing a lot more as well, having a little bit more drag and being able to turn more as well, right? So at the end of the day, these missiles are the middle ground. They're gonna have the 50G turn of the Mika, but not the energy of the AM120, but it's not as bad as the Mika as well on the energy loss. So both these missiles, or the three of the missiles, they will be able to turn better than AM120, AM4, and the PL12 in the short range department. They are going to do well in a dogfight, in the short range environments, and above like 22, 24 kilometers, they're gonna start to be worse than these missiles, but not by much, and they're still way better than the Mika in the BVR, right? So they are right in the middle, and kinda, to be honest, especially the Darter and the Derby, I gotta be honest, they're the best missile in the game, because you probably will not have that 50G, and maybe you don't have the amount of energy that the Mika has, but it will be a lot better and a lot more reliable to hit targets above 30 kilometers, which is almost that territory of the Mika, and it will still turn better in the short ranges from the M120s and stuff. So it's the best missile out there. It's not the perfect missile. The perfect missile would be a Mika, for example, at the start, and an M120 in the later stages. So a missile that turns 50 Gs, that has the enormous amount of power, but it doesn't have the drag that the Mika produces, right? But that doesn't exist right now in the game, right? So yeah, the middle ground between here and there is the Derby and Darter, with the R77 shortly after. You know, I still believe the Darter and Derby are a little bit better, but the thing is that the R77 still has these 50 Gs. It will lose a lot more energy, but it has a little bit more energy. It has a little bit more energy depending on the scenario that you are, and, you know, it's tiny bit changes. But in general, remember these 3 categories and use these to actually try to have a gameplay style. So, for example, for the Mika, I would fly low. You don't have a lot of range anyway, so why bother trying to push yourself into a position where the missile is already in the air, the enemy's missile, it's already half past the kilometers, and then you are starting to fire, and it's still at 30 kilometers, it's not going to be the perfect shot. So just fly low with the Mika. With the Derby and the R77 and the Darter, you can do it all. I would suggest for especially the R77 to fly low, but the Derby and the Darter, you can do really, really well and everything. You know, flying high, flying low, doing all sorts of maneuvers. While the M120, the M4, the PL12 help the missile. Fly high, try to fire in a higher altitude to help the missile have a BVR shot. Fire at 36, 38, 40 kilometers. It can be done. It will still have more than 2,000 kilometers per hour, maybe even more than 200, more than 2,000 depends on the missile, right? But at least more than 1,500 at 40 kilometers. So it means that the missile is still very much, you know, alive, and it can do well if the target doesn't turn very well. And remember, at high altitudes, missiles, the planes don't turn very well anyway, right? So yeah, try to use this. I would suggest to fly high with the M4, M120, and PL12. Do whatever you want with the Darter and Derby, amazing missiles. R77s, fly low, but you can fly high as well and do well, depending on situation, but it's a little bit less range than the other missiles. And then the Mika, just fly low directly, try to get people by surprise for the low ranges. Okay, guys? Basically, this is it. These are the best tactics that I can think of, and these are the missiles that we have in the game. If you use these tactics and this line of thinking, it would mean that you're gonna get a lot more kills. Okay? So I see you guys on the next one. Make sure to subscribe, and bye, guys. See you.